What effort did the people of Namibia make to free themselves from German colonial rule? Was officially declared in 1884 following the Berlin Conference. The major communities in Southwest Africa included the Herero, the Nama, and a reaction or response to German colonial rule by these societies included the Nama among others. The societies which collaborated included the colored races such as the Olam and the Rehoboth. The reaction or response to German colonial rule also included resistances to colonial rule and the indifference response. In 1883, a German trader, Adolf, bought Angra area from the Nama chief Joseph Friedrichs. The price which he paid was about 10,000 German Deutschmarks marks and 260 guns. He soon renamed the coastal area after himself, giving it the name Luderitz. Believing that Britain was soon about to declare the whole area a protectorate, Luderitz advised the German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck to claim it as a German territory. Witbooi was forced to sign a treaty of protection with the German colonialists. The treaty allowed the Namakwa people to keep their arms, and Chief Hendrik was released having given his word of honor not to continue with the Hottentots uprising. Under governor of German Southwest Africa, real peace by 1890s was never achieved between the German colonialists and the native communities. In 1903, there were over 3,700 German settlers living in the area, and by 1910, their numbers had increased to over 13,000. The German settlers were encouraged by the German metropolitan government to appropriate land from the natives, and forced labor, which was hard to distinguish from slavery, was used. As a result, relations between the German settlers and the native people greatly deteriorated. A rebellion by the Herero people in Namibia broke out in January 1904 and continued until 1st March 1907. In January 1904, the Great Herero Uprising under Samuel Maherero began in Okahanga. This rebellion had been planned for a long period of time. The rebellion quickly spread through the whole of Herero region and Damaraland. On 11th January 1904, the leader of the Herero people, Samuel, ordered the extermination of all the white people in Namibia, excluding the English, Boers, Namas in the German protectorate of Southwest Africa. Faced with the continued encroachment upon their land, famine, decline in their livestock, despite the various treaties of friendship with the German colonialists, the Herero chiefs organized a revolt on January 1st, 1904. Over 100 German settlers and soldiers were killed in the uprising and ultimately took control of Herero land, located in the north-central region of the colony. At the same time, the Nama rose up against the German colonialists. They fought a bitter guerrilla war led by their leaders Hendrik and Jacob Morenga. The ongoing local rebellions escalated in 1904 into the famous Herero and Nama Wars when the Herero attacked remote farms in the countryside, killing approximately 150 Germans nations. The outbreak of the rebellion was considered to be a result of Commander and Herero resistance, and he was repressed by the more notorious and nonsense generals. In the beginning of the war, the Herero people under the leadership of Chief Samuel had an upper hand. With good knowledge of the terrain, the Herero people found little problems in defending themselves against the. Soon, the Nama joined the rebellion, again under the leadership of Chief Hedrick. The coup with destruction, the Germans set about 14,000 additional troops who soon crushed the African rebellion in the Battle of Waterberg in 1905. Earlier, General Rother von Trotha issued an ultimatum to the Herero, denying them citizenship rights and ordering them to leave the country or risk being killed. By 1909, the Nama resistors had been killed in big numbers in such means as genocide and terror, mass extermination, starvation, and public hanging. Namibia under the racist South African imperialism. Between 1914 to 1919, Germans were defeated in the First World War. After their defeat, Namibia was declared a mandated territory to South Africa by the League of Nations. South Africa was requested to administer Namibia on behalf of the League of Nations. In 1939, the League of Nations collapsed and the newly formed United Nations Organization in 1945 agreed that the mandated territories should become trustee territories of the United Nations Organization. In 1960, the South African mandate was terminated in favor of the Namibian independence, but South Africa refused and made Namibia part of South Africa as a fifth province of the Union of South Africa. By 1960, many independent African countries of Liberia and Ethiopia challenged South African control over Namibia by fulfilling a suit at the International Court of Justice in Switzerland. After 6 years of proceedings in 1966, the International Court of Justice revoked the South African mandate over Namibia, and the United Nations Organization resolved to guide her towards independence. In reaction, apartheid South Africa implemented the Plan of 1964, which incorporated Namibia into the Republic of South Africa. The Ondendale Plan was aimed at dividing Namibia into Bantu homelands. The apartheid policy was equally introduced in Namibia, gazetting it into 9, and the rest of Namibia was established as white settlement territory. Many apartheid laws were enacted about movement, marriage, labor laws, land ownership, and military spying machinery were introduced in South Africa. This resulted into the rise of nationalist organizations in Namibia to struggle for independence, which was later achieved in 1990. When the Germans were defeated in the First World War, they lost control over their South African participation on the side of the Allied powers encouraged the League of Nations to mandate the area to the racist South African region. South Africa's willingness to develop the area. Namibia's economic potentials via agriculture, mineral human resources, and fishery resources. The area was also strategically located. This could be taken over by the racist South Africa and the Portuguese from Angola and Mozambique. Namibia was strategically located on the coast area of southern Africa. Encouragement given by the African white settler in the area, the influence of the Western capitalist powers such as the Britain, USA, and the industrial investors of Europe. Namibia was marked base of South African goods and commercial service. The area was favorable to investors from South Africa and Europe. There was constant pressure from the African politicians from South Africa. The divisions among the Namibian nationalists by 19 the nationalists were divided along ethnic or tribal, philosophical, and religious lines. In 1945, the Second World War broke out and the Germans, still like in 1914, were the aggressors. The newly created United Nations organization replaced the League of Nations in 1945. The United Nations organization called for the setting up of a UN Council to govern Namibia until independence. South Africa refused the decision of the United Nations Organization member states and continued to occupy Namibia. How did the South African racist government use the policy of apartheid in Namibia? The South African government extended its policies of separate development into Namibia. The racist policies relied on separating non-whites from whites on the basis of land, labor, education, and political powers. During the Mandate era, the South African government imposed a land division in which the whites, with 12% of the population, were left with 60% of land, the rest being given to the Africans as reserve area. A dangerous situation developed at Windhoek in 1958 when about 36,000 Africans were required to move from the old locations of the town to Kaftura, a town 8 kilometers away that had nothing of worth to recommend it. The UN was informed of the resettlement by Chief Hosea and Chief Samuel. A boycott of municipal services was organized, but this did not stop the relocation going ahead. One crowd of demonstrators was fired on by the police, resulting in the death of over 11 and wounding of around 44 people. Employment in Namibia was organized in the same way as in the racist South African regime. Africans provided a source of cheap labor which was for short-term and migrant intent. They were never allowed to stay permanently in white areas. Job discrimination in favor of the whites was widespread and reinforced by law. Unskilled casual labor or semi-skilled work were usually the reserve for Africans. Although the activities of trade unions were declared illegal, strike action was forbidden. In December 1971, about 2,000 African workers were prevented from choosing and changing their jobs or employment. The protest only gained small benefits for the workers, but it did not demonstrate the resistance to the South African presence was not limited to guerrilla activity or petitioning at the UN. An inferior education was provided to the Africans. Most Africans did not move beyond the lower primary levels. The basis of modern apartheid system was the formation of Bantustans in reverse areas with normal self-government and infinite lines. In 1968, the South African Parliament, through the development of native nations in Southwest Africa, passed a law or an act which provided for the creation of 6 Bantustans, including Ovamboland, Damaland, Hereroland, and Eastern Cape. On 15 August 1973, Ovamboland held elections to fill 56 seats, 36 of which were already appointed and only 6 were contested. A successful boycott of the elections was organized and only few percentage of the thousand electors voted. The enforcement of these policies was achieved by the same legal machinery as in the South African Republic. The suppression of the Communism Act, the Immorality Act, Terrorism Act, curfew arrangements and pass laws were all meant to suppress any opposition to the apartheid policy. The impact of these policies was dismembered country from some world organization, limited opportunities in education and employment, and reduction of political powers, which led to the growth of local organized nationalist groups. They were intended to gain independence and prevent the Namibia to be under the South African Republic. The suffering and pleas of the African people was taken to the UN General Assembly, and Namibia became a territory, but Jan Christian and Dr. Malan blocked the move. Church leaders, reverends, and Rehoboth leaders between 1950 to 1971 tried to help the African in Namibia, but all the efforts were unsuccessful and failed to force South Africa out of Namibia. The Western powers feared to confront the Republic of South Africa on the apartheid question. Many UN General Assembly's resolutions were incapable, and policies of exploitation and apartheid continued in Namibia until it achieved independence in 1990.